From the studios of Books in Motion, this is Tim Campbell, reading The Final Voyage of the Sea Explorer by Douglas Boren. Now let's begin The Final Voyage of the Sea Explorer. Prologue. Her eyes squinted against the blowing rain that was coming down harder now. The storm was getting stronger, she had to admit to herself, and for the first time she felt a twinge of apprehension as she gripped the ship's wheel tighter. In a moment, she pushed the feeling away, her haughty pride reasserting itself. She was the Black Widow, after all, queen of the pirates, commanding a fleet of ships that scourged the Spanish Lake of the Caribbean during the mid-1700s. For years, her brutal and ruthless raids on the treasure galleons had menaced the very fabric of commerce in the New World. Her moniker of the Black Widow was deserved as the result of her cunning and sinister rule of the seas. A 17-foot swell caused the Viuda Negro to list to starboard dramatically for a few moments before the ship righted itself. Ironically, the flagship bore the same appellation as its mistress, the Black Widow. The seas grew, and the waves pounded the ship even as the hurricane-force winds swirled mercilessly around it. The roar was deafening, and the shouted commands of the proud captain could scarcely be heard. Their raid off the coast of San Juan had been very profitable. Her spies had done their job well, nearly a ton of gold doubloons taken from the Spanish treasure ship. But it had not been easy. Her best captain, her one true love, Rafe Alexander, had left the fleet a year earlier. God, how she missed him. In her entire life, no man, not even her departed husband, had ever stirred the Black Widow's heart or burned her passion as Rafe had. Her face scowled as she thought about it. Curse him anyway. She was still the ruler of the most powerful pirate fleet the world had ever known. At least, until now. The convoy of Spanish warships guarding the treasure ship sank 3 of her ships in the attack. The Viuda Negro had barely managed to escape with its plunder as the Spanish Navy gave pursuit. During the 1,000-mile chase northward to the Bahamas, her fleet had dwindled as ship after ship had steered off to avoid capture. The relentless Spanish captains came after her flagship with a vengeance. Twice she'd fought them off, losing more of her ships each time. Now, all alone, she knew that she was heading into a hurricane. Smiling a grim smile, she had every confidence that she and her crew could survive it and allow them to escape the Spanish pursuers. It was a gamble, but her entire life had been a gamble. Time after time her skills had seen her through. But this was the Baja Mar, the shallow seas, not the place to try to ride out a hurricano. The slate-gray skies and overcast clouds obliterated the horizon even before the dark of night fell. There was no sign of the Spanish fleet. Wisely, they had chosen not to enter the maelstrom of what would be the century's most powerful storm. The daring of the Black Widow had worked, but her arrogance had caught them in the grip of a watery hell from which they could not escape. The winds howled at 130 miles per hour, screeching with a deafening roar. The ship was tossed about like a cork on the sea. The sails had long since been torn to shreds. With a sickening crunch, the main mast snapped in half. 5 crewmen were crushed beneath its weight. The Black Widow struggled to hold onto the wheel. All she could do was try to keep the bow pointed into the wind. She had lost all semblance of control. The ship turned from side to side as wave after wave pounded it. Often it nearly capsized in the swells that were now 30 feet high. Heavily laden with the gold, the ship rode low in the water. Desperately, the pirate crew threw everything they could overboard to attempt to lighten the ship. Cannons, nautical gear, soaked gunpowder, everything they could try to keep the ship upright. But it was useless. Every wave that broke over the ship's bow poured broiling seawater into the ship's hold, Every time the ship listed, she became heavier as the sea slowly but surely enveloped the ship. Sample complete. Ready to continue?